documentation. So in the past time, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has taken us to the statements of the dead child to everyone, and I guess specifically to Srivas Thakur. So after that, the child departed. And there's a glorification of Mahaprabhu's love for Srivas Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur concludes, let he take shelter of Srivas Thakur, so that he will also become so dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there's the last couple of prayers here. What happens as the Leela is concluded? I don't know which prayer this is. This must be like prayer number out of the 13. This must be prayer number 11 we left off, maybe 11 or 12. I think we have 2 more left, 2 or 3 more left. Starts off like this. Seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showing such favorable grace to Srivas Pandit, all the devotees present there began to dance ecstatically, and they repeatedly shouted, Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, with resounding voices. It is simply not possible to describe the ecstatic mood that arose in Srivas's home at that time. Indeed, it was just like a great war of transcendental emotions was taking place within the battlefield of tears of joy, all arising due to ecstatic love for Krishna. Then the 4 brothers of the dead boy came over and fell down at Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet and began weeping and wailing with piteous voices choked with ecstatic love. Then they began rolling on the ground, overflowing with pure love, while humbly petitioning the Lord as follows. They said, O Lord of our lives, if calamities like this would happen every day, then that would only increase our deep loving attachment to your lotus feet. This calamity of losing our brother today is actually our great fortune. For on this day, we are remembering your lordship. If on some other day we are bereft of your remembrance, then that day is actually the real calamity for us, O Lord. Falling down at the lotus feet of Srivas Pandit's entire family, Bhaktivinoda thus narrates how their Lord Gaur Sundar is bestowing his causeless mercy upon all distressed souls. That's the end of the prayer, I think. There's a couple of things here. The first thing that's interesting is the happiness that everyone felt seeing Srivas Thakur receive the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So seeing another devotee get grace in their life is a source of great happiness for other Vaishnavas. And without that spirit, no one can understand Srimad Bhagavatam. This is actually the real difficulty in understanding all the secrets of Srimad Bhagavatam, it seems. The very outset of the Bhagavatam, the statement is mentioned, Dharma prochita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsara nam satam. In this Bhagavatam, the Parama Dharma is being glorified. Parama Dharma is bhakti. And what is forcibly kicked out is cheating, Kaitava Dharma, cheating religion, cheating Dharma, duplicitous Dharma. This is all kicked out of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this Parama Dharma is understandable by those who are near Matsarya. They are devoid of envy. Envy defined as the inability to tolerate the greatness of others. That is what envy is. So nirmatsarya means the absence of that quality of being unable to tolerate the greatness of others. And the reason they're able to do this, the reason devotee is nirmatsarya is because he's satam. Satam means he's situated in truth, situated in reality. Situated in the reality, of course, of Bhagavan, situated in the reality of the soul. Satam, abiding in truth. Such people are called as satam. In other words, their ability to be devoid of the intolerance of another's greatness is because they can see the true value of the self, because they themselves are self-situated. So seeing the true value of all selves, they don't feel envy. And there's a saying in Sanskrit, Atmavan Manyatejaka, as you see yourself, you see others. So usually the self notion is somehow related to the psychophysical apparatus, and this is the cause of envy. But when you look beyond that and see the soul, see your own soul, then you can see the souls of others. And this is what allows, and that soul is intrinsically worthy because it is the Paramatma Shakti, it is the Shakti of Bhagavan. So its worth, your own worth and the worth of others is not rooted in the psychophysical apparatus and what it can do, which is how mostly people become envious of each other because of that misconception. The worth is intrinsic to the soul. So you're situated in your own worthiness. So you see the worthiness of all other souls, rather than in the body of a Hitler or Trump or in the body of a saint. You see all are worthy. And as a result of that vision, you're devoid of the tendency to envy someone, even those who seem deserving of our envy, like someone who might be persecuting us. So these people, they can understand Srimad Bhagavatam. And so one of the symptoms of this quality is that when you see others receiving grace, you become happy. We heard about this earlier on when we were studying sixth canto from the Dichi Muni when he was speaking about the imperishable Dharma. The imperishable Dharma for everyone, no matter secular or otherwise, this is something that everyone can agree on. When you see, when someone is happy, you become happy. And when someone is distressed, you become distressed. This is the imperishable Dharma appreciated by all. So that's one thing that sticks out. The other is the nature of bhakti and its deep relationship to the somatic life. Generally in the culture of Vedanta and yoga, there's this hard split between matter and spirit. The yogin or the Vedantin, they kind of cut off, really in a sense, they cut off part of themselves from the spiritual culture. The body is negative. And since the body is negative and it's the source of our bondage, it's the cause of misery, then they just cut that part out. So they perform many austerities. Self-abnegation becomes a huge part of their culture. Vairagya becomes a huge part of the culture or the means by which they try to reach for, the light of enlightenment. But so long as you're in the body, it's impossible to it's basically impossible to think yourself different from the body. Our consciousness is pretty much fully, I don't know what's the word. I don't want to use the word entrenched because I'm trying to make another point, but it's fully like integrated, so to speak, with the body. And so even though we may understand by Vivek that we are not this body, if that Vivek translates into the harsh asceticism of the yogins or the Vedantins, then it's like as if we're cutting off part of our very self from the spiritual culture. And of course, especially in the age of Kali, where we're not having the adhikar of these yogins and Vedantins of past, to cut off part of yourself from the culture of spiritual life will lead to all sorts of psychosomatic issues. Thus, our Hare Krishna movement, full of a lot of kind of like crazy people, honestly speaking. And Bhakti Yoga is Bhakti Yoga has a more integrated approach. It doesn't say cut off part of life in order to commune with God. All parts of life make it possible to commune with God, even the somatic life. In fact, Bhakti Yoga is defined, when sadhana is defined, kriti sadhya bhava sadhya bhava sadhana bhita. This word kriti sadhya means, the word kriti here refers to the actions of the senses, which, the body, the mind apparatus, and the speech. All these are to be offered to Krishna in emulation of the sadhya bhava, sadhana bhita. Sadhya bhava means sadhya bhakti, bhav bhakti. We want to emulate the culture of the bhavuka devotees with our own body, mind, and senses and speech and so on. So it doesn't cut out the somatic life, but the somatic life becomes part of the culture of enlightenment and devotion. This is why Krishna says this is susukam kartumavya, that when glorifying Bhakti in Bhagavad Gita, he says susukam kartum, it is happily performed. Why? Because it does not require you to cut off part of yourself, or at least your sense of self, from the culture of spiritual life. All of that can be brought to Krishna. Anyway, I'm saying all that to say that the Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving a description of the battlefield of emotions. and how that manifests practically in the form of tears shooting from the eyes. And we can get some of the other satyakabhavas, which is a very somatic experience. It's like in the body itself. The body is part of the experience of spiritual life. So I was appreciating that. And the last thing is these statements of the four brothers of the dead boy. So they go over and they also are in ecstatic love. They offer their obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they say the death of their brother is a great benediction. Plot twist. This is like Narada Muni when his mother, and his Narada Muni in his past life as Sadhaka, when his mother, he was attached to his mother. So in a sense, he was not able to fully go on his journey of beatitude because there was a natural attachment to his mother, a natural sense that he needs to care for her. And this is even after he developed rati or praying for Krishna. Even then, he had that sentiment, oh, I should take care of my mother. And so his full, let's say the full unfolding or efflorescence of beatitude in his life, in a sense, was not able to happen. And so Krishna made an arrangement by which his mother was bit by a snake. And at least Prabhupada's comment about that in the Bhagavatam is that this is the way Krishna drags a sincere soul closer to him, which is an interesting comment. Here, the four brothers are saying a similar thing, that they saw the death of their brother as a benediction because it leads to remembrance. This is Queen Kunti's prayer also, Vipada Santu Tashashva Tatra Tatra Jagaguru, Bhavato Darshanam Yashara Punar Bhava Darshanam. But she herself is praying for calamity. She's not praying for calamity. Rather, she's making a point that calamity is serving as a udipan, a stimulus for a deeper absorption in God and His grace. And since Bhavato Darshanam Yashara Punar Bhava Darshanam, because of that absorption, Sadata Bhava Bhavita, and God and in grace in one's life, that absorption means there'll be no more birth and death cycle. That's her realization, her comment there, Punar Bhava Darshana. I'll no longer have to see a Punar Bhava, the material sojourn. So this is actually benediction then. So there's, because calamity is udipan for this level of absorption, then that these calamities come again and again. So here the brothers are also praying similar. Because we are remembering you because of this calamitous or reversal in life, then this calamity is actually a benediction. As a general rule of thumb, this switch of attitude when dealing with life's eventualities, life suffering especially, how our attitude towards it can transform what would ordinarily be viewed as a human tragedy. It can be transformed to a human achievement just by the switch of attitude. And Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, you see this happening all the time. One of my favorite examples, Parikshit Maharaj, where he's cursed to die in 7 days, and he tells the sages that he sees this curse as Bhagavan himself coming in the particular form of a curse in order to bring him to the bank of the Ganges and receive grace. That is his own realization there. So what would ordinarily be a calamity in his life or tragedy, and it's truly tragic. This word tragic in the poetic world, at least like the Western poetic world, the word tragic is usually used in relationship to someone who's actually a hero of the story, but they make a huge blunder or something very terrible happens to them and somehow their life is disintegrated as a result. And so such a thing is called a tragedy. If you're not the hero of your own life, then the calamities in life are not called as tragedy in this technical Western poetic sense, apparently. It's just called pathetic. In other words, those who have not actually gone on the journey of individuation, even on an empirical level, what to speak of a spiritual level, those who have yet to go on that journey, when they meet with reversals, then their life is just pathetic. It's just like downtrodden and pathetic. But when you've actually gone on the heroic journey of individuation and you've achieved success empirically or spiritually speaking, and then there's a reversal that happens, they call it as tragedy that time. Apparently, some devotee was sharing this with me some months ago. And so it's tragic, but this tragedy can be transformed into a human achievement just by the switch of attitude in that particular moment. Srimad Bhagavatam is filled with so many examples of this. We are citing Parikshit Maharaj and also Queen Kunti's own prayer. And the boys here, they're saying the same thing. On the death of our brother is a great benediction because it is cause for remembrance. The only true calamity in this world is forgetfulness of you. That is the real calamity. That also echoes Queen Kunti's follow-up prayer to this calamity verse, which I quote all the time. Jaya Maishraya Shruta Shribir Edamana Madapuma. Not Eva Ariti Abidatum Vai Toma Kinchana Gotara. You know the verse. The poor Pakshas, well, if this isn't a calamity in your life, what is a calamity? So she giving the answer. I say calamity is aristocratic birth, high education, beauty, wealth. I consider this to be a calamity. Why you said like this is calamity? Because Edamana Madapuman. Because there will be the expansion of pride. Edamana Madha, the expansion of Mada means madness. Madness means when you identify with your ego. Ego is itself not the problem, as I've been saying these days, but our identification with it and its expansions in the form of what we consider to be ours, or the I am I thing. Well, what's the problem with that? Naeva ariti abidhatum vai. Because with the expansion of that sense of self, I'll not be able to feelingly call out to you. I may also say the name Govinda, but there will be no feeling. As Prabhupada, I believe, writes in that purport, we should call out to God like a child calling out to the mother. But we can't cry for Krishna like that because I'm secure. Got my beauty, got my wealth, got my education, got my aristocratic position. I feel secure, I feel safe in that. So Sri Vishwanaga, one sentence commentary. The real calamity is the security of the sense of security in the material world, by which a living entity fervor for divinity becomes, I've been using this word a lot, muted. Still, he may chant Hare Krishna, he may do bhajan, but his bhajan has no fervor because I have so much security and what's going on now. I have my ego world. I'm feeling very secure in that. So now bhajan is going on, but there's no fervor. That is a true calamity. So may the calamities come and cut my wealth and cut my beauty and cut my education, cut my aristocracy. Does it always have to happen like that? Not necessarily. But may it come also, that is Queen Kunti's realization. Because then I can turn the volume up, so to speak. Being sheltered in the security of material, all my devotions become muted. But with all that out of the way, now the volume can be turned up, so to speak. And the fervor of the soul crying out, reaching out for Bhagavan can become evinced. So the boys are also, they're praying like this to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very nice. Bhagavatam Thakur is very happy to see this in his meditation. Okay, next prayer. I think this is the last one, is it? Lord Chaitanya, who is so affectionate to his own devotees, then took the dead boy and along with all the, why does it do this? Oh my God. Sorry, I'm looking at this on my phone and it just suddenly just, okay. Nope. Okay, so Lord Chaitanya, who is so affectionate to his own devotees, then took the dead boy and along with all the devotees began to chant the most auspicious sound vibration of the holy names. Thus, singing and singing, they all arrived on the bank of the Ganga, the Janavi. Then they performed the proper funeral rites with some water from the Ganga. The personified Ganga Mai, Sri Janavi Devi, then appeared to herself and said, "Such unlimited auspicious fortune has become mine today. Now I have achieved the successful fruits of all the vows and penances I had undertaken." Then Lord Chaitanya personally put the boy's body into the river. Immediately thereafter, Janavi Devi picked up the body and took him on her lap. Bringing the dead boy out of the water, she touched the lotus feet of Lord Gora. With the body still on her lap, she began to tremble in ecstatic love for the Lord. Seeing such an ecstatic mood being exhibited by Sri Janavi Devi, all the assembled devotees there immediately began chanting the auspicious holy names incessantly. From the heavens, the demigods began to shower flowers like rainfall. They crowded in the sky, almost blocking out the sunlight with their innumerable airplanes. In this way, everyone on all sides was absorbed in various ecstasies. After performing the funeral rites, they all took their bath in the Ganga. In great happiness, everyone then returned to their respective homes, and Bhaktivinoda is now completely immersed in the transcendental ecstasies of Lord Gaur Sundar. The last prayer here. The activities and behavior of Lord Gaur Sundar within the villages around Nadia district are just like ambrosial nectar. By drinking this nectar, just give up all of your material lamentations and fears. By drinking this nectar, just give up all of your material lamentations and fears and make your heart become thus fixed up. I'll read it one. By drinking this nectar, what nectar? Of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Lila, that's what he's saying. Just give up all of your material lamentations and fears and make your heart become thus fixed up. Within this temporary material world, my friends, the only substantial essence of absolute truth is Lord Krishna. Therefore, kindly take heed of Lord Chaitanya's advice and just worship Krishna constantly. Whoever understands this and thereby firmly grabs hold of Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet is most fortunate. And if he worships Shri Shri Radha Krishna in Vrindavan, then I will accept him as my very life soul. Their lordships, Shri Shri Radha Krishna, are not other than the self-same Lord Gaur Chandra. And Sri Navadvip Dham is that very same Vrindavan Dham. If you consider this as the only essential point, then you will rightfully receive some eternal treasures. Actually, I am completely devoid of any real knowledge or good intelligence. Indeed, I am most lowly, insignificant, and contemptible. I am also certainly without the slightest trace of good karma or philosophical understanding, and I am completely bereft of any proper virtuous behavior. All these simple Vaishnavas, who I consider to be just like my spiritual master, have given me this title of Bhakti Vinod, but because I'm actually totally devoid of any trace of devotion, this title has simply become like a painful disease for me. Taking great care to check the spreading of this disease, I have taken refuge at the lotus feet of all the Vaishnavas, taking the dust of the lotus feet of all the Vaishnavas upon my head. This lowly Bhaktivinoda thus sings a story called Shoka Shatana, the dispelling of grief. That's the end of the prayers. I do wonder, out of all the pastimes in Chaitanya Bhagavat or Chaitanya Charitamrita, why Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has been inspired to write 13 songs glorifying this particular pastime is a great mystery to me. I don't know the answer to that. And his Gitavali, I think this comes in Gitavali, right? Gitamala or Gitavali, I always forget which one. And 13 prayers dedicated to just this specific pastime. And why he has decided to zoom in on that, who can say? We will have to ask the Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Just a final statement here, and from this last statement, he's saying that if we want to become fixed up in bhakti and drive away our fear and lamentations in this world, then we should take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela. And he's saying if you also worship Sri Sri Radha Krishna, then he will consider you to be his very life soul. So this was reminded me of a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita and also Prabhupada's purport, and I'll end with this. It's very interesting. This comes in Madhya Lila, chapter 25, the last chapter of Madhya Lila. And at the end of the chapter, Kaviraj Goswami is singing the glories of Mahaprabhu and Krishna Lila. And he writes this one statement, and Prabhupada's one sentence purport is hilarious. I think it's two sentences, actually. Give me a second, I'm just pulling it out. It's been a while since I looked at this particular verse. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's this one. No, it's not this one. Hold on. Yeah, I forgot how long this passage is. We should go back and read it. It's towards the end. He's glorified Krishna Gaur Lila. I wonder this particular thing though. Hold on this. Oh, this is something. Yeah, this one. Okay, 278. Sorry, I'm getting lost in these verses. They're very interesting. This is 278. So this is a very nice verse, and Prabhupada's purport is hilarious. So in the course of glorifying Krishna Lila, Gaur Lila, Kaviraj Goswami writes this: man becomes strong and stout by eating sufficient grains. But the devotee who simply eats ordinary grains, but does not taste the transcendental pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna, gradually become weak and falls down from the transcendental position. However, if one drinks but a drop of the nectar of Krishna's pastimes, his body and mind begin to bloom, and he begins to laugh, sing, and dance. Such a nice verse. Prabhupada's purport. All the devotees connected with the Krishna consciousness movement must read all the books that have been translated, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal blissful life with transcendental pleasure. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is also encouraging us to take shelter of Gaur Lila and Krishna Lila to become fixed up and save our souls. Okay, we stopped there. These were very nice prayers. I hope you like covering them. They're very beautiful. I've been inspired by them for some years now. Still don't know why Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur decided to zoom on this pastime, but we've done the best we can to talk about it, give some insight. And of course, because it echoes the Tritaketu Lila, it was a fitting place to bring it up. That's why we've read it. So we'll stop here. See if anyone wants to say anything. In the chat, it looks like, how would you finish 16 rounds if you started crying? I don't know. Let us get to the point where we can start to cry, and then we can answer that question with realization. You can write a book, how to finish 16 rounds while crying for Krishna. And it would be a very interesting book for the serious bhajan devotees. Okay, anyone else would like to say anything?
Yeah, Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
What's up?
Just, you were making this point towards the beginning about how a devotee feels happy seeing others receive grace.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it's funny. I was in California last week or a couple weeks ago. Sachinandan Maharaj was doing he was doing Sunday feast at Laguna, and I had the opportunity to play mridanga for him, and I was just about to play mridanga for his, he was going to sing Jaya Radha Madhava, and I had to leave to take care of the baby. So that was like until somebody else got an opportunity, and I felt happy for them that they got an opportunity to do that, but I also felt really disappointed that I didn't. So I'm wondering, it's one thing to feel happy for someone else, but to also feel dejected when you don't receive it, is that also okay? Or should you just...
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
What's wrong with lamenting, huh? Bhaktivinoda Thakur throughout this whole prayer has been lamenting. Oh, they got such opportunity, but this Bhaktivinoda Thakur has not got an opportunity. He's also lamented, isn't it? Oh, just see, he's expressing happiness to see, but he also lamenting his own poverty in that sense. So that's a good sign, is it not? If we're not lamenting our poverty in terms of Krishna consciousness, then how will we reach for the wealth of Krishna consciousness? As we were saying kind of yesterday also, if we become apathetic to our condition, then there will be no fervor to settle it. Just like if you're hungry, then you become very acutely preoccupied with removing the hunger. That is natural. So in a similar way, all the souls were actually hungry in this, we're hungry in this material world for Krishna consciousness, essentially. But because we don't know what the hunger is for, we keep trying to satisfy the hunger by other methods. But if you come to know what the hunger is for, then how can you not but be sad about it? I'm hungry, I need this. I'm not getting a chance to eat. So I'm happy to see my other friends eat, but I'm also hungry. So it may be a good sign that we are, eager for grace, at least we recognize our desire for it and perhaps our need for it. It seems to me to be a positive thing more than a negative thing. It's particularly if you can also feel happy that the others are there, at least they are eating nicely. But I also would like to eat nicely. Why not? Yeah, that's mine, the best I can do. Okay, cool. Let's see, anything else here? Now the chat box suddenly blew up. I feel when grief comes, it totally absorbs us and leaves no room for gyan. That may be true. And we say knowledge can remove ignorance. Well, to be honest, devotees, we don't exactly say that. There's two degrees of ignorance. We can call it as double ignorance. All jivas in this world, they suffer from double ignorance. So first ignorance is absence of self-awareness, absence of awareness of the true nature of the self, the swarupa, the jiva. But that absence of awareness is itself rooted in the absence of awareness of Bhagavan, or the Paratattva, the supreme reality that encompasses it. So this is a double ignorance for the jivas. So jivas, by gyan, they can remove the avidya that causes absence of awareness of their swarup. But that gyan is itself part of the Maya Shakti also. As we've told many times in this class, Sri Krishna explains to Uddhava, Maya Shakti has two potencies, avidya potency and avidya potency. So by the vidya potency of Maya, you can remove the avidya potency of Maya, and you can become self-aware by that. So that is a path of Gyan Marg, Yoga Marg. They're connected to the Prakriti still. And they increase Sattva Guna, that's the vidya potency of Maya, and by that you become self-aware. But without devotion to Bhagavan, that higher degree of ignorance, which is the absence of awareness of that part tattva, that cannot be removed. That part is still remaining. So ignorance in its full sense cannot be removed without devotion to Bhagavan. So yes, now coming back to your point here. So when we're in grief, the gyan isn't working. Okay, that's true. And we say knowledge can remove ignorance, but we have to be open to receive that, okay? My experience is attachment completely obliterates the channel of receiving anything, including guidance, knowledge, etc. That means the suffering is not intense enough. See, the only thing, when Gyan cannot function, that is when Bhakti comes to the rescue. And Bhakti is manifest simply in the crying out for Krishna. What to speak of chanting Hari Nam or hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or this, that, and the other. Just in the offering obeisance to Bhagavan. And obeisances can be offered with the body. Obeisances can be offered with the mind also. Obeisances can be offered with the voice also. Actually, a true obeisance means when all three are involved. Just like when we go before Prabhupada or we go before the deity, you offer your obeisance with the body, and then the mind should also be meditating on the, prostrations to the deity, and your voice speaks out. We usually say prayer to our guru, and we may say a prayer to Bhagavan while offering Vandanam. So Vandanam is such a powerful practice, says Jiva Goswami, that even though it is part of Archana, technically speaking, he says, Vandanam is part of Archana, but he said it is such a powerful practice that even if you can do nothing else but offer Vandanam, then you can be delivered. And therefore, Prahlad Maharaj has spoken of it as a separate anga. In the verse, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedana. He's spoken of it as a separate anga because he said, even if you can do nothing else but offer Vandanam, then even by that Vandanam, you can be delivered. And he quotes so many examples of devotees in the past who have received perfection just by Vandanam. And sometimes you can see, if you go to Braj, you see many of these Brijbasis. You see them, maybe some of them, they look a little materialistic, maybe they are, as far as our sort of sense of what we think materialism is. But you can see their only spiritual practice is doing parikrama of Govardhan or offering obeisances. They don't have any other practice. I don't practice chanting japa necessarily or doing so many other angas. They're just doing Vandanam. So yes, when grief becomes heavy, our gyan is usually suspended. We don't have access to it. And you said it completely obliterates the channel of receiving anything, including guidance, knowledge. So if you can't receive anything because you're too absorbed in your abundant in your grief, okay. That time, then you can just offer abundant, cry out. Bhakti is performed just by crying out. That's the point I'm trying to make. Just by crying out. When Gyan is not able to function, Bhakti can function still in that dark place where there is a collapse of my knowledge, the collapse of my practice, the collapse of meaning. So even in that dark place, when there's a collapse of all of these important things, even there, Bhakti can come out, and it may even come out more profoundly precisely at that moment, just by being able to call out to Bhagavan and grief or whatever it is. Please help me, and do the Vandanam that time. That's the point I'm trying to make. And then by calling out that time, you may gradually, by Krishna's arrangement, find opportunity to be open to receiving other forms of grace in the form of teachings, this and another, as it is arranged by God himself. But yes, Gyan may be obliterated, but Bhakti can never be obliterated. True Bhakti can never be obliterated. Even those dark places where there's a collapse of sadhana and meaning and even a sense of belongingness, that time the soul may really cry out to God. And therefore it will be seen that this dark space is a benediction, in fact. Balaram once told me regarding service to Guru Maharaj that whatever is our quota, we will get. No need to lament if you don't get it. It is actually true that we all have destined quota. Is it actually true that we all have destined quota of seva? The quota of seva for everyone is, unending. Seva is itself an eternal reality. It doesn't have any quota in a limited sense. So the quota of seva to the spiritual master is also eternal. Because even when we're not with his Bapu, seva should still be going on to our Guru Maharaj and our Guru Varga. It is not that only when Guru is around we're doing seva to Guru. Even when Guru is gone, seva is supposed to be going on eternally. Seva to the Guru, seva to that reality, which includes the Guru. Guru is part of that reality. Kaviraj Goswami has clearly said such a thing in the very outset of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So seva to that reality is eternal. There's no question of a quota, fixed up quota. And if you mean quota to the Vapu, that is also not decided by us or by some karmic past destiny or anything like that. That is decided by the internal potency. When that Guru decides to show that particular type of mercy, then you may get an opportunity that you didn't even seek. That happens all the time also. So someone must have said that, well, that was because it was your quota. According to what cause? The Guru, as far as the conviction of bhaktas is concerned, Guru, and that reality is beyond the constraints of empirical constrictions. So who can say what is our quota in that sense? And seva to that reality is always eternal. So coming back to the original point from which I think this thing is in response to, having not gotten such an opportunity, there can be lamentation. So many bhajans are that only. The lamentation, oh, how they receive Mahaprabhu's mercy, and I myself am also waiting to receive. Oh, I'm so unfortunate that I took birth after Mahaprabhu that I did not get to receive. So this lamentation is part of the richness of the culture of bhakti. Even in sadness, there's a ecstasy that can be tasted. Just like when you watch a sad movie, but you experience some happiness from that. You see people like watching sad movies, right? Because they experience some rasa from that, mundane rasa, but they experience it. So there's also a type of rasa, the lamentation. There's also a type of rasa. Oh, lamenting how I've missed this opportunity. So that, I think your question was in response to that. So you mean to say that seva to pure souls is due to internal energy bestowing its grace, not due to great karma and path? Yes. At least if that comment of that devotee is implying that we want to deny that. You cannot put limitations on that reality. So whether we get a chance or whether we not get a chance is due to the decision of that reality. It has nothing to do with the constrictions of this reality. So we want to deny that. And therefore you see sometimes people getting chances that they didn't themselves even pray for. That is how, and even things that you do pray for or hoping for, that also doesn't come. That reality is completely independent. They can do as they like. In either case, the seva to that reality is always eternal. And whether we get chance for a more intimate form of it or not, that is up to that reality. Okay, so what's the point you were trying to make when you spoke about how it's hard to not feel your human emotions, as you pointed out during Song 11? Srila Prabhupada says in the first canto that the human being cannot be like a stone. Well, I was saying that when we say you're not the body, that's okay. That is important for Vivek. And, Vivek is a function of the intellect, which derives its gratification. All our faculties get sense gratification from something. So the senses get sense gratification from the objects of the senses, form, sound, and so on. The mind gets sense gratification from thoughts, basically, imagining this, that, and the other. And the intellect gets sense gratification from breaking things apart. That's why people who have a little intelligence, they get really into that, breaking things down into lists and taxonomies and acronyms. That's the intellect derives satisfaction from that. So I was making the point that our consciousness is mixed up with this apparatus. So we may have the Vivek that, actually, I'm different from this apparatus. But as a visceral experience, you will not think that you're different from the body. That will not be possible. As a visceral experience, you are this body. As an intellectual understanding of the experience, you can make discernment. But the visceral experience will be that you are this body. That is the visceral experience of conditioned life. That it cannot be denied. It doesn't matter how much we say we're not this body. That you already see by direct perception. So the point I was making is that in the culture of Vedanta and yoga, they make an aggressive split between the somatic means the physical body, or the body itself. They make a very strong, aggressive split between the somatic life and the, spiritual life, or the life of the soul. We're not this body. And then therefore, their program becomes abnegation. Self-abnegation becomes a huge feature of their marga. Self-abnegation of the senses, self-abnegation of the experiences of the body. Everything in the body is negative. So I was saying in Bhakti, we don't have that same approach. Adhikar for Bhakti is that you're not too attached and you're not too detached. So you're not too attached like the karmis informed by beginningless avidya. They just want to enjoy the body. And you're not too detached like the Gyanis who see the body as negative. Gyanis, Vedantins, Yogins. And we're not too attached, not too detached. The somatic is very much a part of the Bhakti life. And it may even have something to teach us. Just like in the 24 gurus of the Avadhu Brahmana, Srimad Bhagavatam, one of them is the body itself. That body is also guru. The body itself has so much to teach, so much enlightenment to give, even. That was the point I was trying to make. In Bhakti, the somatic doesn't have to be negative. So like in our ISKCON family, because it started off as a sort of brahmachari sannyas movement, so it has become, status quo now to look at the body as negative, like the Vedantin, Gyan Marg yogis. So a lot of emphasis on you're not the body and a sort of negativity towards the body. It's just sense gratification. It's just, enjoyment, blah, blah, blah. Well, the Brijbasis, they're also householders. They're very much into the sensual life. And that is not considered problematic for them because their sensual life is for Krishna. So even all the feelings and experiences and the sensual, all of this in the context of Krishna consciousness. So this is why Krishna says, Susu kam kartum, this bhakti yoga is joyfully performed. Because it doesn't have this harsh self-abnegation mandate, basically, vidhi, as in the Jnana and Yoga Mara. So this is the point I was trying to make. And Shangopi says, yes, I remember that we were to give something to Guru Maharaj Balaram Prabhu told he asked someone else to do that, and we certainly didn't feel happy. Anyone else wants to say anything?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, just to follow up on what you just said. I think in another class, you said that we will always feel to some extent that have that. Yes, we will always feel to some extent that we are the body. Like when we are conditioned, we'll feel like we're this body made of the modes. When we're in the spiritual world, we'll feel like we have spiritual. We'll feel like we are the spiritual body, you know?
Yes.
So as we become purified in this material existence here, will we ever come to, not in a negative self-abnegation sense, but will we ever have that visceral sense that we're not this material body?
I think the answer to this question is yes. It depends on the level of samadhi we reach, the level of absorption or avesha that we reach in another, in the truth. In other words, right now we have this bodily absorption, but it's possible to have Swarupa Vesh, where you get absorbed in the Swarup of the Jiva, or you get absorbed in the Swarup of the spiritual world. So when there's Swarupa Vesh, that time you will have a visceral experience of being a part of another reality. So that time you will not feel connected to the body. For the yogis, for example, when they go into samadhi, they certainly do not feel themselves connected to the psychophysical apparatus whatsoever. That is the meaning of samadhi in their context. And for devotees, when they go into samadhi, what follows thereafter is the self-disclosure of that greater reality in this, you can say sacred space of their samadhi. So at that time, because they have a vesha or absorption in another reality, then they'll feel disconnection from this reality on a visceral level. That was your question, like viscerally.
Yes.
So everything depends on a vesh. Even in this material world, sometimes you can get so absorbed in something that you become disconnected from the bodily life. For example, I heard there was one footballer, apparently, this is some years ago. So he grabbed the football, he was running, and he got like partially tackled this thing, but they couldn't take him down. He continued running, and he made a touchdown. And then after making a touchdown, he collapsed. And it turned out that during that partial tackle, his leg like broke. But he was so absorbed in getting the goal. He was just so absorbed in getting the goal. He didn't even feel or notice his leg was broke. He just zoomed and went and made a goal and then collapsed afterwards because his leg had broken. So I gotta go. I forgot who was telling me this, but such things are possible when there's a vesh. There's just this total deep absorption and a goal, another reality. Then you become disconnected. But when there is no avesha, you cannot viscerally not feel you're the body. You can only intellectualize it. Oh, I'm not this body. And then you try to make decisions based on your vivek. But viscerally, you'll still feel like you're the body if there's no avesha. But once there's a vesh, then yeah, you're viscerally part of some other reality. So you become disconnected. Just like when you dream, you get that dream avesh also. Then you feel completely disconnected from the waking life, the body and its whole history and its race and gender, all of that. Your avesha now in some completely different world.
When Yeah, I'm sorry. When you said, when do we feel like we're in a different world and what?
When we're dreaming.
Oh, yeah. I'm maybe you're not in a position to answer this question, but I'm just wondering what that I'm a little puzzled by the fact that, let's say, Bhakti Tirtha Swami or even Srila Prabhupada, when they were feeling that, they were simultaneously in so much excruciating pain, yet they were also, Bhakti Tirtha Swami has that famous quote, right? It doesn't get any better than this, So it's like, what's going on there? Is he, what's his level of detachment? I don't know.
Who can say? I cannot say.
Yeah. That's what
I would have to ask.
I did give that disclaimer,
I would have to ask.
Yeah.
But honestly, if you're really absorbed in another reality, it could, aside from the, having like a visceral experience of something more profound and deep, but the evasion can also just manifest as you're concerned only about that reality. So even though you're aware of other things, it doesn't distract you. So a nice verse in that regard is the 269 Bhagavad Gita. So where Krishna says, what is night for common man is a time of awakening for this, self-control. And the time of awakening for common man is night for the introspective sage. Sanisha Pashatomuni, I've made this point many times. He says, Sanisha, for the sage, it is nighttime, but he sees it. In other words, although he's asleep to the external reality, he can also see it. But I think Baladev Debushan gives a nice analogy here. He said, it's just like a girl who is dancing with the plates on her head. So although she is, aware that there are people around her and watching her, and she's aware of that, but she's actually focused on the plates on her head, where all her absorption is going there while dancing. So the yogi may see, or in the case of the thing you're bringing up, they may say, oh, ouch, the body is hurting, the body's in great pain, but there are Vaishyas and some other realities, so they become unconcerned. It is like night to them. Sanisha Pashatomuni. It is night to them, although they see it. It is like night to them. There may be that. There's that side also. Otherwise, we have to just get realized, and then we can understand the tattva.
So figure it out for ourselves, right? Yeah.
Right. Jaya. Okay, anyone else? 929. Okay, then we all. Oh, what's
Prabhu,
up?
I had a point. Prabhu, I was remembering something in this regard also, that today what he spoke, that when we're doing the Manashiksha prayers, there how Jagannath Goswami addresses the mind as, or dear friend, or dear mind, dear brother, brother. And at that time we had a discussion how, usually, at least it has been my case, my understanding has been that, we are supposed to beat the mind in the morning with 100 shoes and beat the mind 100 times at night also. But that builds an idea that a mind is an enemy, who is like very far when he deserves punishment. But at the same time, you were sharing this idea that, hey, mind is saying, you are the one who fed me all this food of nonsense. And then you are the one who is, complaining about it. Similarly, so the mindset has to change. Maybe in the beginning it's a good idea to talk about mind as an enemy, but it has to change and it has to become like a brother. Same with the body and the mind.
Why not?
Yeah.
We could think of beating as in beating into shape. You want to beat with the shoes and beat with the broomstick. I'm beating into shape because I love him. This is my friend. I want to see my friend become successful. Why I want to see him become successful? Because my success also depends on it.
Yeah.
If we're on a boat going to some destination and there's two types of groups on the boat, and if they become enemies of each other and begin fighting, then everyone gets to die. The whole boat gets to sink. So they have to become somehow reconciled to one another so that they can all make it to the shore safe and sound. So the boat of the somatic life, and then you have the mind and you, the soul. If we don't become reconciled to each other, how we will reach our goal? Without the body and mind, there could be no sadhana bhajan. There could be no bhajan whatsoever. So we don't want to be doing bhajan with the enemy all the time, floating around, if we think like that, then we'll always be at odds with ourselves. There'll be like a schism in this our sense of self and so on. So there has to be a sense of reconciliation. We're working together. Also, because at the end of the day, the mind also wants to be happy. The body also wants to be happy, so to speak. They're not really conscious entities, but we can talk about them like this. Why the mind is reaching for sense objects? Because it wants to be happy. And basically, the mind gets happiness by avesha. That's why people like watching movies and so on, because they get the avesha for 2 hours. And by that avesha, their whole sense of relation to the world gets suspended. They feel a little bit relief. They feel happiness. So that is also what rasa is all about. It's about this absorption. And from the absorption, the mind become happy. So we need to say, hey, what you want, I also want this thing. But we've been trying it one strategy only, and it's for many lifetimes it's not working nicely. So now let us try a different strategy. That's what I'm saying. So the mind will say, but we've been doing, inertia is there. The mind gives an argument. They say, yeah, no. I agree with you. I'm just saying we tried this strategy many lifetimes already. But let's try a different strategy now. This is a different strategy. I promise you also this one will work. And then you bring the intelligence and hey, come on, help me convince this guy. He's kind of a little bit interested, but he still has doubts because of previous purva samskara. So you bring the intelligence and help convince this guy. Like, hey, same thing we're going to do, but we're going to try a different strategy now. We're going for the same thing, but we're trying a different strategy now. Like this, and that way, that's what I'm saying. In bhakti life, we don't take a hard division between these two. We're a non-dualistic tradition, not a dualistic tradition. So yoga, Sankhya is a dualistic tradition. So there's a hard divide. But we don't have that hard divide. Everything is actually God only. That is our true understanding. So God has also given this. The Prabhu has given this. What is that verse also? 1087-2. Buddhendriya manoprana jananam ashraja Prabhu. Marchartam cha bhavartam cha atmane akalpanaya cha. So the Prabhu, he has given the buddhi indriya manoprana. The Prabhu means God. He has given this. Why? So you can do Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So the Prabhu is gifted. How can a gift of the Prabhu be bad? Just because we're squandering the gift doesn't mean that the gift itself is bad. So the Prabhu, he himself is given the Buddhendriya Manoprana. He is given this gift only. So that you can do your Dharma, Artha, Kama, or Moksha, as you like. So how we can disrespect the gift of our Prabhu, who's given so nicely to us. So we should not think so negatively about it. That is not bhakti culture. That is good. That's why Rupa Goswami said in the beginning, a little bit of that is good. That little bit of Gyan Vairagya in the beginning, just to get you a little foothold, you're a little materialistic, get a little break from that. But if you keep it on, then your heart will become hard. That will not be good for bhakti. So Rupa Goswami has said this clearly. Still, we'll be adopting it. Same old sort of spirit from when we first started. And then we wonder why we're still neophyte devotees. No integration. Everything is negative. So yeah, that is my argument. That is I stand by that. I think it is a good point. Thank you,
Prabhu. Thank you for reaffirming that.
Okay, we'll pause here. Thank y'all very much for continuing to be my guardian angel and engage me in some katha in the daily. Now, Harisham says the mind gets happy by a Vaish. Yes. Profound. I heard something similar from His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Purna Swami years ago. And this is why the mind is in goodness, because it derives satisfaction from being absorbed in the moment. Nice. Thank you for sharing. That's a good comment. All right. So Om Tat Sat found. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya. Go Pramanandi. Here you go.